morning, Colorado. Kyle Danielson here, and welcome to Do It All Danielson. In today's episode, my wife and I are headed up to Silverton to retrieve something very, very special that will pave the way for our future. Stick around for our adventure today. You're not going to want to miss this. So let me give you all a little bit of a backstory. Last year, I purchased a stock car from the railroad, an old cattle car, narrow gauge for that matter. And we purchased this car with the intent of turning it into a tiny home. Today's mission is to go up to Silverton and stabilize the car, get it ready for a move down to a place called Oxford. I've got a friend down there who's very generously allowing us to borrow property while we restore and rebuild the home. I won't be talking too much once we get up to Silverton because we've got a lot of work to do to this car before it's ready to be shipped on the truck. Okay, first things first, gotta put a wood wedge underneath one of the wheels here. Currently this car is being held in by an angle bar that's welded into place. Oh looky, there's already a wood wedge. In that case I'll just add another to the other side. Alright, well here comes the part that's going to make me nervous. You're almost loose. Did you hear it? It actually moved when I cut it.
Really?
Yikes! Be ready to bail at the drop of a hat, okay?
I don't feel good about that. I feel like I should get down while you're doing that.
Angle bar's cut loose. This means you could roll. There'll be a little bit of a bump. I can't get all of that off. Not enough time this morning. Next bit will be to cut the top there, the brake stand off, so it can fit under all the stoplights and such.
Oh, I'm not wearing these pants. I don't want to try them off on my first excursion.
Alright, she's loose. Ugh. Brake stand removed. It's now inside of here with its ratchet and pawl. Not bad. Not bad at all. Door secured. Door secured. Might strap them down just a little tighter. You want to be able to play it like a guitar string.
Yeah.
And just in time, our truckers just showed up. Well, ladies and gents, this is an exciting day, one that has been a year in the making. So I'm finally glad that we can take our wonderful, beloved, albeit run-down stock car and get it out of the town of Silverton. We're going to be transporting it about 65 miles away, south, over Coal Bank and Mollis Passes, to Oxford, Colorado. Alright, here comes another fun part. Because you see the truck bed doesn't have rails on it, so we need to create some rails. Brought a bunch of 2x4s up, and we'll create some temporary rails for our stock car to ride on. Got rolled by in a motor car. That was the maintenance away boss. He just kind of gave me the look. What am I getting myself into? Fully loaded on the trailer now. These cars, when they were built, weigh about 12 tons, but we're missing a lot of wood on it. So I'd figure in the 8 to 10 ton range. It's still a lot of weight to move, yeah. But she rolled very nicely. It's actually kind of exciting to see a car that's been sitting for, oh gosh, years and years and years. Very, very old, but also still very, very impressive.
Nerve-wracking part of it.
I think she'll be fine.
Yeah?
Yeah, she'll be fine. Wow, guys. It's real. The project's real.
So excited.
Yes, I got goosebumps. We never, or at least I never thought, when starting a tiny home project that it would come to, or that it would ever evolve into something like this. We came up a while ago, did some prep work on the car, took a bunch of boards off that would have come off during transportation on the highway, and it started to feel a little real now, but seeing it on the truck, moving, even it just rolling away from its set of rails that it sat there for goodness, who knows how long, 40 years maybe? It's just exciting to see it moving. It's real. It's very real, and I couldn't be a happier man. So now comes the long haul down to Oxford. 65 miles away. Should take us maybe about an hour and a half. McKnight's has been a very good company to both the railroad and its private customers. They've moved a lot of these railroad cars, so all the guys there, all the truckers there have experience moving railroad cars. So I have complete faith that our trucker here is going to handle it with the utmost care. Oh, it's so exciting.
You're all giddy.
I feel like a giddy little schoolgirl.
Oh.
that this car is going to become a tiny home for us. Probably going to be a couple-year project, but this was something that I've been wanting to do for a while. Not just, you know, railroad car tiny home, but tiny home in general. Many years ago, I got to house sit for a couple that are really good friends of ours. Spent about a month in their home, their little tiny home, which was only a 20-footer. Even though it was only 20 feet long, there was a simplicity about it that I liked. You could sit at any point in the home and look from one end to the other and know exactly where everything is. Don't get me wrong, I like my material possessions. We're able to fill up an apartment complex pretty darn easy with all of our stuff. But there's just something about the simplicity of a tiny home that makes it so appealing. Not only that, but if you set up your tiny home just right, then it's financially freeing as well, which would allow us to put some money away for the future, or for traveling, or for being able to go do those fun things on our time off. And I can't exactly remember how the stock car idea came about. Oh, never mind, it was the camp car.
Yeah, it was the camp car.
Back in the 1980s and into the 1990s, the Durango and Silverton offered a product called the Rail Camp. A 30-foot long, narrow-gauge boxcar was converted into an RV-style weekend getaway that they would take up the line to those who charter it. It's got a galley, it's got a dining room table, it's got a shower and a toilet, closet space, and 4 bunk beds. Looking around that made me really consider wanting to do a tiny home out of a railroad car. Middle of the year last year, when I put in an offer on this one, the 5605, which has been sitting up in Silverton probably for the better part of 40, 50 years, on its own little piece of track isolated from everything else. And I paid $2,000 for this car. $2,000 might seem a lot for something falling apart like this, but considering a lot of the hardware on there is about 1900s, early 1900s vintage. We'll be replacing all the wood on this car. There's really not much that we're going to be saving. So basically, we spent $2,000 on vintage hardware. And that gets us further along than if we were to fabricate something like that from the ground up. Now, I've also had a lot of people say, why don't you put rubber wheels underneath it so you can take it anywhere? Well, that kind of ruins the nostalgia of living in a railroad car now, doesn't it? Ultimately, what we'll end up doing once this home is rebuilt is laying a panel or a section of track down on a piece of property and then putting the car on top of it. That way it still retains the look of an old railroad car sitting off in the woods. But admittedly, I'm getting way ahead of myself because we're still on the road following this thing. We haven't even started the major process of tearing it all down. Now would be a good time to mention that there is a GoFundMe out there to help us convert this old narrow gauge railroad car into a tiny home. I will leave a link for that in the description below in the video. Feel free to drop by the page and give it a look. You don't have to donate. I'm not pressuring anybody to donate, but if you feel like our cause is worthy enough, then go ahead and toss us a couple of bucks. We'd very much appreciate it. And of course, paired with the YouTube channel, we'll be doing update videos on this car as we rebuild it. Today's episode is just the start of a pretty long saga of restoring this car. And it's gonna be a really, really exciting endeavor. I've been jazzed about this for a very, very long time. To see it out here on the road just fills my heart with joy. Probably another half hour, 45 minutes, we'll be down in Oxford unloading our car. the panel of track that she be lying on. Looks like they're discussing a game plan as to how to get this thing up here. So I'm crossing my fingers, hoping for the best. So let me explain a little bit what's going on here. The tow truck is going to be used to pull the stock car off of the trailer, as the panel of track that it's sitting on is laying very flat, and they couldn't get much of a tip on the trailer bed. Unfortunately, we started having problems pretty early on in the unloading process. Oh! There we go.
We need a little bit more.
No, it settled down into the flangeway. So this is where I decided to cut the camera. It took us about an hour and a half to unload the car from the trailer because everything wasn't lined up properly. We had a small derailment, had to pull the car back up on the trailer and then try at it again over and over. And the original point the tow truck had blocked and tackled himself to started moving on us, so we had to go to the zircon, or the shipping container that's right behind it, and it started moving. It was a big old disaster. But anyways. Wow, guys. This was a son of a gun to get off the trailer. Looks like I scratched up the lens. Yeah, man, a little pock mark in the lens. Hopefully you don't see that. Otherwise I might have to get a new one. There she is, 5605 in her final, well, second to final resting place maybe. I'm gonna do an outro a different day, because with the start of this series, I'm gonna be keeping track of the finances, the amount of time that we've spent on this car, the amount of money that goes towards it. Because I know some of you who are building tiny homes love to crunch the numbers and see how expensive it's gonna be. As soon as I get the bill from McKnight's, I'll tally a bunch of stuff up for you. And we'll do a year-to-date thing at the end of every single one of these episodes so you know what it's costing us thus far. We'll see you back at the house. Hi there, welcome back to the house. So now we're going to talk about money. As I mentioned earlier, the stock car cost us $2,000 here. Before we were even able to move the car, I had to put the panel of track together, and I had to buy some railroad ties. $48 for 25 railroad ties. Also had to buy some miscellaneous tools. Bought a bunch of ratchet straps and some grinder wheels. That cost us about $64. And finally, the bill for McKnight's ended up rounding off to a nice, even $450. Add all those expenses up and you have $2,562 so far. As for the amount of time spent working on this whole project, I will say 4 days. 2 days it took for me to build that panel track. It's a lot of ties to hand spike by yourself. Another day to peel wood off the side of the car so it wouldn't fly off on the highway. And a fourth and final day for getting the car moved from Silverton to Oxford. Pretty expensive 4 days, huh? $2,500 is quite a bit of money to drop. Nobody said that a tiny home wasn't built in a single day, and nobody said it was going to be cheap either. But thankfully for us, it's something that we've wanted to do for a very long time, and it's going to be a labor of love all throughout the process. And that about wraps it up for today's video, folks. Thank you so much for coming along with us. I hope you had just as much fun as my wife and I did out there. Now may God bless you, and you have a good night.